It's Toby from Heavyweight MMA. Today with combat sport guru, former fighter and trainer of champions, Lolo Heimuli. How are you, bro?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good to chat, man. It's been a while. We haven't talked for a couple of years. The first interview was 4 years ago.
Yeah. Been overdue, mate. Yeah.
Wise. Man, recently we've had a few events over here in Macau, China. We had a road to UFC, a couple of road to UFCs with a Kiwi and an Aussie on there. And we had a UFC over here. And it got me thinking about the China connection. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the origins and that of some of the connections with China and training over here and fighting over here.
Yes, I think we are fortunate enough to have Sifu Philip Lam, who's actually from China, and he get the connection way back in early 1980s. I had my first fight there, 1982, at Queen Elizabeth Stadium in Wang Chai, I think, and follow on with some of our young guys. Young racer for Jason Sadi and all of our fighters, up and coming fighters, during the early 90s, and from there we went into China when I remember when the lease, the British lease ran out, 100 years lease ran out. And there was a lot of inter-traveling between Hong Kong and China. And it was crazy, I remember, I think we first went to an area called Guangxi or Guangxi in 1993. And at that time, the traveling between Hong Kong and China was so crazy. Back in the days, they have to swim across the border, and there's so many people got eaten by sharks there, you know. But remember the old Kowloon Airport? They had the shortest runway, and it was one time before we were scheduled to go to Guangxi, and but there was a hail. Whenever they have a hail in Hong Kong, all the flight is delayed by 12 hours. So we missed the flight, and because of we missed the flight, you had to book the train about a month in advance because people just go crazy back and forth, And so we had to hire a minibus, and it took us another 12 hours from there to Guangzhou, and then Guangzhou to Shenzhen, and Shenzhen to Guangxi. Eventually we arrived there, but it was so crazy, yeah.
And Lolo, back in those days with you guys traveling out of New Zealand and fighting in Hong Kong and China, what did you gain from that, like getting out of your country and fighting in a foreign place?
We gain valuable experience, and we were fighting. The Chinese fighters were still developing at the time. Now they have a very, very high standard. Okay, excuse me, but back in the days we were fighting. We were meeting the Thais and the Dutch, and some Australian fighters came there also at the time. Get to meet guys like Ivan Hippolyte and Ernesto Hoost and their coaches, Johan Vos. This was before everybody got heavily involved with K1. K1 at the time was just coming up. I think the K1 Japan didn't get into full flight until the mid-1990s, even though it started back in 93 to 94, But we get to witness and meet some of the Dutch legend at Hong Kong back in the days, and everybody. It was like a neutral ground where everybody meet there. We fight a lot of development up and coming Chinese fighters, but their level at the time wasn't as good as it is today. Today they put a lot of money into their fighters, and you see some of the fighters also at the UFC, both women and men, and they're much higher standard now. than back in the days.
Yeah, man. Talking about the Hong Kong side of things, when I first came to Macau 20 years ago, the Muay Thai in Hong Kong was quite strong. There was a lot of shows, and guys like Nugget with the NTG lads came over, and another guy called Mark Pease, great coach from Strikeforce in Queensland. These guys were bringing over fighters regularly and kind of continuing the thing of fighting over in China. So it was still going for quite a while, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we meet the Australian legend there, and British legends, like coaches and fighters. Guys like Dave Hitchcock and of course Nugget, some of the guys from Brisbane and as well as New South Wales. Hong Kong was like a neutral ground, and then the Chinese fighters start getting better and better from fighting us, and now they you know they developed some very very good fighters at the lighter weight division. But yeah, back in the days was an unknown market. So we would just go there and fight and travel from there um, to mainland China and the odd fights at Macau. I've been to Macau, not so much a fight. We just went there to travel, um, you know, and sightseeing. But yeah, we have a lot of guys like Shane Chopper Chapman, Sadie Jason Remore, the Seffel brothers. We were very lucky to have Sifu Philip Lam with his connection that allows a lot of Kiwi fighters going to China, and he also arranged to bring Australian fighters over to Hong Kong as well. So he was part of getting some of the Australian fighters to fight in Hong Kong.
And do you think that sort of travel and meeting up with all these international fighters and fighting over there helped to develop the Australian New Zealand fight teams, their skills and whatnot?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because it's you know uh, not so much of the of New South Wales fighters, but more Queensland fighters with Nugget and them because you were fighting Muay Thai. Back in the days, it was only Queensland and us Kiwi fighters. They were doing more Muay Thai because of the boxing regulation in New South Wales. A lot of them they couldn't fight the Muay Thai rules, and I think the same control happened in Victoria as well. But it was less a red flag for the Queensland fighters, as well as our Kiwi fighters who fight any sort of different rules. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from New South Wales, man. I know exactly what you're talking about. When I fought, I could only fight kickboxing rules. You couldn't fight knees and elbows in New South Wales. Crazy.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about there now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. So the next generation of fighters, like your Adesanyas, your Brad Riddell, and a few of the other guys that went over and did some circuits, that was kind of after that stage when they had a decent circuit of kickboxing shows, right, in China.
Yes, I mean, like China just went crazy, um, promoting and developing fighters at China. That guys like Israel Adesanya and some of our Kiwi fighters here practically live there for about a year and just fight. And if they don't have any injury, they could fight once a week. I think one time there, 1 year, I think Adesanya I fought about 31 times or something like some crazy like that. Um, and and uh, and they had a lot of opportunities to fight. If they don't have injury, they'll keep fighting. There's a promotions in China every week in different provinces. I was offered a job there, coaching job to go there, but at the time, my kids Lolo and Rodney, they were about 2 or 4 years old. It wasn't the right time for me. because my wife needed a lot of help, and I think they gave it to Eddie Tongalahi, and now he's been living there ever since. That's about 15 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy man. And that sort of frequency obviously leads to good development. I mean, the Thais fight like very often as well, and then you've got the Kiwis and a couple of Australians heading over to China and fighting in these circuits where they can get so much more experience. It kind of fast tracks their development, right?
Oh man, they hungry. They hungry for anything. They hire Kiwi coaches there, Australian coaches, Thai coaches, and even in their boxing, they hire Cuban coaches to help their boxing. So China puts so much money into their fight games and compete, and you can see that in the national event, and they're getting better and better. You know.
Yeah, man. And then kind of the next guys again who are delving into MMA also kicked off some of their careers over there. I remember actually where I work, there was a show called Legend FC, and that's where Dan Hooker and Kai Kara France kicked off. Was pretty early in their career. They fought here in Macau and also Hong Kong on this promotion, and started to hone their craft. So it's kind of moved from the kickboxing side into the MMA a bit more now, right?
Yes, I mean I remember talking to Israel Adesanya back in the days, and I said, look, if you guys go to China and make a name for yourself, because I mean you're talking about, every time you fight over there, um, you guarantee about 20 million viewers. So you're gonna make a name or get exposed to a lot of people. I mean, it may not be the West, but there's still 20 million viewers every time they, because they love their fight games. I mean, when you look at what, how many, 2 or 3, 4 billion people in China, there's still a small percentage, but there's still 20 to 30 million viewers on watching the fight games. So by the time he crossed over to UFC, he was well known already with a lot of people following him. So yeah, but all our guys here that fight at the UFC, like Dan Hooker, um, um, Israel Adesanya, Brett Liddell, even Carlos Ubek, when he was training with me, he had a couple of fights over in China as well. So yeah, China was a good stepping stone for our Kiwi fighters to meet the Thais or meet some of the Eastern European fighters over there. And but the Chinese, they just love. They don't care who fights. They go there and support, and they make a big deal of international fighters going there to fight.
Yeah, man. Like in the time I've been over here, I've seen them shifting a bit too. Before they really like to stand up, so they appreciate something like kickboxing or Thai boxing. I think because it mirrors like a kung fu a little bit more, so they can identify with it. But what I've seen is they're growing to actually appreciate MMA now. I think it's because of people like Zhang Weili and the rise of UFC that they're starting to appreciate. And as they have a few fighters in there, they're really getting into it. So some of these people fighting in China, if they're successful, they're superstars, like you said, because they've got such a big population, they can quickly become very famous.
Oh, I mean, they already plan to. I mean, they're doing something that we don't. Um, they train their fighters, and they bring the fighters to the West to learn our way of fight, and they also learn the language. That's something we don't attempt to do, to learn to speak in Chinese, and but some of the fighters, like the women fighters, you remember the first year they couldn't speak a word of English. Now they get interview, and because they learn the craft and they also learn the language. And then, like I said, they plan to for the long term. Most of us sometimes we take one fight at a time, but some of these Asian and Chinese fighters, and I start to see that too with the Russian fighters and Islam and Khabib, and they all speaking. They take up English lesson for interviews, and so they're there for the long haul. So which is good for the sport, and it's good for you know and good for the TV coverage and in the interview, so they don't have to get an interpreter. You know what I mean? You see that now at post-match um, interviews, you see people now they start learning to speak in English and handle the question quite good.
Yeah, man,
Uh,
interesting you say that because it's 100% true about the Chinese. They have what they call long-term orientation, whereas most of us Western sort of people have short-term orientation. We think differently. I actually didn't know that until I came here. Like they actually think differently in a lot of ways. So yeah, they're smart in some ways for sure.
they're so hungry for knowledge and information that it's just a attitude they have in whether it's business or politics or whatever. They just learn. They're hungry for information. Like I said, they're not just learning how to fight the Western ways. They also learn the lingo, and so they can handle themselves in the interview and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, they are a step ahead of some of the South American fighters.
On the culture and everything, man. I know nowadays the promotions are very professional around here and everyone's treated well, but I hear a few people talking about those old circuits who were saying that they felt like they were a bit like treated like a dog, like a fighting dog. Didn't even know what they're doing, just being shipped here and there to fight. How was it when you were there?
Oh, mate, I tell you what, I've been through that so many provinces and so many promotions in China. Sometimes you end up in a five-star plus hotel, and sometimes you end up a place where the rats running around your feet. But I wouldn't have traded those experience. You know what I mean? It depends on who promoting the shows and area that. And then one time we went to Guangzhou. We actually got a red carpet there because not many Westerner went there around the early 90s. We get to meet the the region mayor, which is a big deal. I think Guangzhou, the area we're in, is one. It's not the biggest area, one of the smaller region with 50 million people, something like that. So they were making a big deal of us going there. They had a red carpet. We go for uh, there was a big banquet after. We had a stadium of about 8,000 people there, but I think 90% of them was the Red Army. It wasn't many people that like the everyday people going there watch a fight, and so they were so polite because the communism discipline was still strong at the time. And when something happened, everybody just clapped their hand. You don't see and yelling or anything like that. Hong Kong was more westernized, and everybody was screaming and. But that deep into China, it was so disciplined. There was most of the people watching the fight were like the military.
Yeah.
So I guess things changed now, and I went back there. I think the last time I went there was about I can't remember. It might be 5 years ago, and there's so much have changed. There's a lot of Western culture has been injected to the Chinese, even the franchise of McDonald's and all the Western franchises was there.
Yeah,
So
man.
it's a big change since the first time I went there in the early 90s.
Yeah, man, the globalization, right? Some of the shopping centers there are the same as some of the shopping centers in Australia or New Zealand or wherever, but
Okay.
they still have some changes. Talk about it too when the UFC was in Shanghai last year. There was there was fans outside the hotel for the fighters like almost 24/7. So they're going to love that too, even though it's an American event. Yeah,
No, I love it going to China. I mean, we'll see what happens. Uh, you know, if the market pick up again, I'll probably end up there, go there sometime next year. But yes, it's China's. It's one of those. Even though we've got many people, I feel safe in China. It's the crime rates. it's very low, because they have a harsher punishment, I guess.
Yeah, that's 100% true, man. Like things like drugs and that are not as available because they'll put you in jail for life and stuff for drugs. And
Yeah.
now they got cameras everywhere too. The crime rate's gone down even more because you're going to get caught. Like there's just too many cameras. It's very difficult to get away with anything.
I've been there with my wife so many times, and everybody feels safe going to China.
Mm. Actually, funnily enough, like when I came here, I was thinking like, because Macau's on the edge of China, lots of people coming. Sometimes people come here doing the wrong thing too. But I would say if you left your phone somewhere here, it's going to last longer than it would in Australia, to be honest. You know, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. And the benefits. What do you think the benefits are of fighters now, like fighting? We got lots of guys fighting around here for Road to UFC from Australia and New Zealand. Right now, we had a couple of the guys come over. Kiwi Case of Murdoch, Joseph Lachinez, George Mangos, and then on the show over here, Cody Haddon. What do you reckon the benefits are for these guys to get out of Australia and New Zealand and come and fight in a place like China or other international places?
Well, I mean, of course, now when you go to China, back in the days when we used to go to China for fight, we used to watch out for the Dutch fighters and the Australian fighters and some of the British fighters too. They were there. But nowadays, you come up against the Chinese fighters, you better take your A game there, because they not just fighting at China. They travel the globe. They bring team here. They take team to US. They take team to Russia. Um, it's when we go to China, we make sure that our guys, take their A game plus. I mean, we were training harder before, but now is the Chinese fighters now with their experience and their travel and fighting, learning from different way of fighting, they actually, the one to beat,
And
Yeah.
and bro, what do you think of the new sort of wave of guys that are coming through? Guys like Lawrence Louis. I don't know if you know Don Marfan or Kasich from New Zealand or any of these new sort of Aussies on the scene. Cody Haddon fought last week or the week before last really well. What do you think of any of these new ones? Anyone stand out for any of these UFC guys?
I mean, I haven't really followed the AFC that much nowadays, but of course, I mean that when those guys get on their level, um, you know, um, they getting better and better. I mean, the Australian fighters and the CKB were always going to have strong fighters anyway, and then you get more and more guys coming over and train and iron sharp iron. So yeah, I can just see it get stronger and stronger, But going back to China, uh, Israel Asana stayed there for about a year, and he was not just fighting the best fighters in Chinese fighters. He was fighting best fighters from Eastern Europe and Europe there, and with the Golden Glory fighters and get to meet Pereira there.
Yeah, yeah, true.
So they were fighting the best fighters around the globe because that's what Chinese do. They bring they want to bring the very best fighters around the world and fight in China against their boys or fight some of the Kiwi or Australian guys who base in China. So either way, they're going to be tested. And like the question you asked me, when those guys come back here, they come back with heaps of experience and battle hardened, because of the time they spent in China.
And bro, any standout fighters coming out of Balmoral League at the moment, brother, before we go?
So you won't see them until about 10, 15 years because they're all young. I
Yeah.
spend a lot of time with the young guys. Um, yeah, but definitely, I can't tell you at the moment, but a lot of them young. I'll share some of the thing on social media. But yeah, it's really, really, um, it's really, really fun working with the kids. I get it. the odd pro guys who show up here from time to time, and we help them, but not a contract anything. We're just friends and help each other, and yeah, even some of the CKB guys, But now I'm sort of taking a step backward now, and watch everyone developing coaches and some of the. I really enjoyed that role because less pressure. Um, like I said, if I'm going to go to China, it's not so much just to go. I would go and just enjoy the fight rather than have to travel there with a big team for fights or anything like that. I mean, one time we took a team to Hong Kong, and we took about 14 fighters.
That'd be
That
difficult to manage.
oh, he was running or was on a 2-day events. They had the guys like Ernesto Hustia, Ivan Hippolyte, and some of the best stud fighters. We were there, and we took some of our guys like Recep for some of Jason Sadi, all our top fighters here in New Zealand was fighting around the time. And this is in the 90s. So like I said, the Chinese, they just not just promoting their fighters, they promote the top fighters from different countries and fight each other. They don't care, and they support them all. And at some point in time, they put some of their top fighters to fight the top fighters from Thailand or Japan, and they just get stronger and stronger and stronger.
Nice.
So yeah, I reckon in about 2 or 3 years' time, China will probably the fighters to beat.
Maybe. And one last point to mention is when you go to these shows, they're very nationalistic, man. So any of their fighters, they're supporting them 100% against the other nations, which is kind of cool in a way because I think some of our countries have like that tall poppy syndrome or just don't like certain fighters and don't support them. But some of these countries like that, probably Russia the same. Like these countries really support their people, and that's something to be admired, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean that's why Strickland was calling Izzy the Chinaman
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
the Chinese fighter loved him, and Izzy loved the Chinese as well. So
yeah.
I think when Strickland was calling him to mock him, he was actually complimenting Izzy.
Yeah. I remember he was called Hatlong, which means Black Dragon or something. That was his
Yeah, yeah.
nickname. Yeah, cool. All right, all right. Thanks a lot, Lolo. Appreciate your time. It's great to have some knowledge and hear about those old times in Hong Kong and China as well, man. So thanks a lot for your time and your knowledge.
Thank you.
Cool.
Nice talking to you again, Toby. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thanks, Lolo.